It's a brand new week. Welcome to Breakfast Central here on News Central Television, the best breakfast show you could ever imagine. Yes, we bring you the best of news, discussions, and the latest trends in Nigeria. I am Benga Aboro. Welcome to a brand new week.
And I am Olive Emodi, welcoming you to another week here of exploring some of the biggest stories in Nigeria. It's been quite a long weekend, and of course Breakfast Extra did bring you some of the biggest stories around Nigeria and the world. And this morning we'll be starting off Wake Up Conversations with this conversation, starting off with our very first story. But before we get into that, Benga, I hope you had a good weekend.
Yes, it was an extended Valentine's weekend. And, I didn't want the weekend to finish, honestly.
The God of the single people will speak for us, and it will.
Your story will change. This time next year, we'll be singing a different tune
and a different song. I receive it, Pastor. Thank you. But the Valentine weekend did not stop all the heat that affected Nigeria's government or the polity, or maybe our reputation, I would say, as U.S. Congressman Scott Perry. In a shocking video that has now gone viral, made allegations that about the USAID and a number of their investments not necessarily being what Nigerians think it is, but being used as agencies to fund or avenues to fund terrorist groups. A number of them were mentioned: Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, and a number of these terrorist groups were mentioned. Now, part of the arguments that the USAID had brought up, or some of those who have been in support of it, they talked about Operation. There was a certain operation, I can't seem to remember the name now, and that they said that this operation, of course, was targeted at helping women in Afghanistan, but that the money did not get to the target audience. Yes. And there have been mixed reactions about this, especially because of the personality and the reputation of Scott Perry.
On both sides, exactly, because of his reputation. He's been known to make false alarms in the past. He's also been known to be a conspiracy theorist, and I guess some are arguing that, don't look at the messenger, look at the message. So it's been, if you look at Nigerian Twitter sphere, X sphere, over the weekend, it's either you're in this camp or the other. There are others that argue that, yes, USAID, they refer to the video, the interview the Chief of Defense Staff, General Chris Musa, did with Al Jazeera, where he said they found foreign monies with some of the terrorists they captured during the operations, which points and alludes to the fact that there might be a linkage with foreign interference somewhere. But still a lot to unpack.
Absolutely.
And during the course of Breakfast Central, we'll pay detailed attention to it and, x-ray the whole issue with experts.
I mean, if you recall, part of the arguments we've seen that have been leveled against U.S. Congressman Scott Perry would be the fact that there was evidence to maybe the attempt to upturn or overturn the 2020 elections, and there's also talking about another allegation, or rather stain on his reputation, will be the association with the House Freedom Caucus amidst internal disputes. They said, as the chair of the House Freedom Caucus, he had been linked to internal disputes and controversies within the group. The involvement in the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot, the communications between Perry and former DOJ official Jeff Clark suggested Perry's involvement in efforts related to the events of January 6th. So there's also been lots of public criticism, and he's faced a lot of legal scrutiny. And this, of course, controversies have led to many casting aspersions as to the validity of these claims. However, there are others who would say Nigeria has been having the Boko Haram problem for a while. And the one question Nigerians have always asked is, how do these people get these monies? Yes, kidnapping is one means, but is kidnapping enough for them to lay their hands on the foreign currency that they've been alleged to use to purchase arms and to further expand the work that they do? But we'll be looking into more details.
A lot of questions begging for answers. But still looking at the top stories of the weekend, let's look at this viral video of Dangote versus NNPC, which sparked a fierce debate, and of course, the NNPC also released a statement condemning it. Now, the video, a young man, we don't know if he's a content creator, bought 2 sets of what we call a Beta Pasio neighbor generator. It bought a few from NNPC filling station. You got another one from MRS, which it's Dangote, which takes fuel from the Dangote depot. But let's watch the video and it'll tell the story.
I did exactly that for both of them. I filled both generators with the same quantity of fuel, turned them on, and set a timer. And after 17 minutes 51 seconds, the generator running on NNPC fuel died first. Meanwhile, the generator using MRS fuel kept running for 30 minutes. That's a 13 minutes difference, a big deal, especially when it's cheaper. So yeah, it looks like the Dangote refined fuel actually lasts longer than the fuel you get from at least NNPC. And again, it is cheaper. Oh God, it is called fuel, not fuel. Fuel.
Yeah, the NNPC didn't find that funny, so they came up with a reaction, a strong reaction. Let's look at their tweet.
NNPC, of course, has refuted these claims they refer to as misleading. It says, NNPC Limited strongly refutes the false and misleading allegations made in a viral video circulating online, which claims that NNPC fuel does not last. This assertion is baseless and entirely unfounded, originating from unverified and amateur research that lacks credibility, accuracy, and professional oversight. NNPC Limited reaffirms that its fuel is carefully formulated with one of the best compositions ensuring optimal efficiency, durability, and environmental sustainability for consumers. Furthermore, it is important to emphasize that a significant percentage of PMS sold at NNPC retail stations in Lagos, where this deceptive video was created, is sourced from the Dangote refinery, a strategic partner in promoting local production and energy security. Dangote refinery adheres to strict industry standards guaranteeing the quality of petroleum products supplied to our consumers. They go on, and in one of the paragraphs you can see there where they say that they will take firm legal action against individuals or groups who intentionally spread falsehoods about their brand and operations. But interestingly, this young man's video is not the first time that we're seeing allegations like this on social media. There have been people on X who have shared their experiences with the fuel, saying that from their own personal experience, they found out that the MRS petrol lasted longer because MRS sourced directly from Dangote. One of the things or the hallmarks of Dangote's petrol from the point where he had all those conflicts was that they kept on pushing about how they had quality petrol. I don't know if it's, excuse me, I don't know if that's what inspired Nigerians to have that mentality. I don't have a personal experience to share. Unfortunately, even if I did, for now, I will not be sharing until I'm, very sure about it. But maybe other Nigerians can share with us their thoughts in this.
At the end of the day, Nigerians just want to buy fuel that is cheap. And what works for MRS is cheaper than NNPC. And there's also a claim, allegedly, that it lasts longer than NNPC. So it's natural for Nigerians to gravitate towards that. The NNPC, I mean, this is 60 plus years since independence. We shouldn't even be importing petrol. I understand the fact that they're trying to discourage monopoly. That's why there's the deregulation of the Nigerian petrol downstream sector. But when you allow other players, when you allow people to start modular refineries and all of that, at the end of the day, Nigerians will benefit from it, will buy fuel at a reduced rate. So I still don't understand why they're protecting importers and why we should still be importing petrol. Just last week, a Dangote refinery exported millions of barrels of jet A1 fuel, aviation fuel, to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. That's a massive shipment, and it should be celebrated that, look, this West African country is beginning to be a next exporter of finished products. Not just, Africa is not just a raw materials place where you come and then we buy the imported at a higher price. So let's encourage made in Nigeria products. I
think the summary of what it is, and the highlight that I want to pick from what you said is, at the end of the day, Nigerians don't care about the semantics of who has what. They just want cheaper fuel, clean fuel that would last long, and that's affordable. That's really what Nigerians want, because it's been a roller coaster. I mean, much later on in the show, we're talking about Tinubunomics, but it's a long journey from when Nigerians were, where the current administration took over power, when Nigerians were buying fuel, short of 200 naira, and now they're buying fuel for 1,000 naira or more, depending on where you're buying from. So it's been a long journey, a lot of adjustment Nigerians have had to make. Unfortunately, they're making these adjustments when their finances are not commensurate to the increase that they've had to, deal with, or the increased cost of living that they're having to experience. But let's move away from that story to the third story. Now, Mudashiru Obasa, the former Lagos State House of Assembly,
still in the news?
Speaker is still in the news. At this time around, he is, of course, challenging the process by which he was, quote-unquote, impeached, stating that, they didn't go through the due process. Now, he's seeking reinstatement, not just challenging the process. And of course, this development has sparked discussions on the validity of his claims, as well as potential political involvement in the subject matter. Now, this suit was filed whilst people were sharing love on the 14th of February to their loved ones. Mudashiru Obasa was not showing love as he filed this lawsuit on the 14th of February 2025 at the Lagos State High Court, contending that his removal on January 13, 2025 was unlawful. He names current Speaker Mojisola Miranda and the Lagos State House of Assembly as defendants.
I like this. As a law-abiding citizen, if you feel harm has been done to you, if you feel you've been, unduly removed, the best way to seek redress is through the law courts, the court of law. Yes, and it's gone to court to test and see what the pronouncements will be. I really like this, but it's been dragging on for too long. I mean, Lagos State has a serious business to attend to, the members of the state legislature, and to see this back and forth. I'm not even sure if he's attended plenary since the return from the United States, because it will be very shocking to him. Someone that has been speaker for almost a decade, 9 years plus, just to go back to the floor as an ordinary member, and that's what he cannot take. That's why he's going to court to challenge the authority of Miranda. Because it's a place where he can, if the case is in his favor, maybe get whatever justice might mean in this regard.
But just from the grapevine, have it that a number of them probably don't want him back, because there's also the fears that if he comes back, he would rain terror on the people who, quote-unquote, conspired to get him out. He might be a toxic or more toxic than they are already alleged that he already was. Because if you recall, part of the accusations that were leveled against him was, how he was, his high-handedness, lateness to meetings, what they felt was
emperor-like behavior.
Exactly.
And if he's been watching News Central, we've had panels of lawyers and legal practitioners dissect this. If he has just watched Nigerian news, he will know that. I mean, I don't want to sound prejudiced, but you can fill in the gaps.
Well, yes. Of course, there are people who think that it was constitutional, the way in which he was, quote-unquote, kicked out, but he thinks it isn't. There might be others who also think it isn't, but the court has the final say. Yeah. You have your say, I have my say.
The court has the final say.
The court has the final say. But let's share with you what we're looking at this morning on Breakfast Central. This morning we'll be exploring the Binance executive who constantly insists that rep members demanded $150 million bribe. The U.S. Congressman Scott Perry alleges USAID funds Boko Haram and others. We'll be looking into the depth of the story, as well as exploring Tinubunomics, a course not studied in school, but the presidency food price claim has sparked reactions. Delta Assembly Speaker refutes lawmakers' defection claims. We reviewed the newspaper front pages with our analysts and with you. Join us for all these and more on Breakfast Central.
It's time for Breakfast Headlines with me, Benga Aborowa. We begin the news in West Africa, Nigeria, where former governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, has described as nullity the panel report indicting him and 18 impeached local government area chairman of 96 billion naira fraud. He said the report was another desperate effort to justify Okpebolo's unconstitutional onslaught on duly elected council executives. In a statement signed by his media aide, Crusoe Osage, Obaseki noted that Governor Okpebolo does not have supervisory responsibility over local government and can therefore not set up investigative panel of government officials that are elected into office just like him. He advised Okpebolo to note that there are limits to his powers as governor, emphasizing that he is neither the Inspector General of Police nor the chairman of the EFCC. Now, still on legislative matters, but in Kaduna, the People's Democratic Party in Kaduna State has described the defection of 3 members of the State House of Assembly and a member of the House of Representatives as unfortunate and a betrayal of the trust placed in them by the people. The 4 legislators from Kaduna State jumped the PDP to join the All Progressive Congress. In a statement issued by the party's publicity secretary in the state, Maria Dogo, the PDP said the defection of the lawmakers to APC was unacceptable and unconstitutional, asking them to vacate their seats with immediate effect. They urged the Independent National Electoral Commission to declare vacant the seats of the 4 defectors. They also called on the speakers of the House of Representatives and the Kaduna State House of Assembly to declare the seats of the defectors vacant and notify INEC to conduct by-elections. The Nigerian police says it has killed a total of 7 terrorists in recent operations across the country. Force Public Relations Officer ACP Olumuyiwa Adejobi disclosed this in a statement issued on Sunday. ACP Adejobi noted that 23 firearms and assorted ammunition were also recovered by the men of the force in the operations. He said the operations were part of efforts to dismantle criminal networks and enhance internal security. Adejobi assured members of the public that operations will continue with renewed vigor to ensure a safer environment for all Nigerians.
Welcome back. U.S. Congressman Scott Perry has claimed that the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, funded terrorist organizations, including Boko Haram. Perry, a Republican representing Pennsylvania, made the claim during the inaugural hearing of the subcommittee on delivering of government efficiency on Thursday.
Here's what you need to know. Congressman Perry mentioned that United States taxpayers' money has been sponsoring terrorist operations such as Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Boko Haram. Boko Haram attacks have resulted in deaths of more than 300,000 children, displaced 2.3 million people from their homes, and contributed to regional food crisis and famines. United States President Donald Trump established the Department of Government Efficiency via executive order. The team led by billionaire Elon Musk uncovered fraud and malpractices after assessing confidential government documents.
Now, before we get into the conversation proper, let's get to take a look at the video where these claims were made, after which we'll bring in our guests to join the conversation.
I just mentioned, the $697 million is on top of, and is in addition to the weekly to every 10-day shipments in cash of $40 to $80 million. Afghanistan is ruled by folks named Sarajuddin Haqqani. The Haqqani network mean anything to anybody in the room? How about Abdullah bin Laden? Who gets some of that money? Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan, terrorist training camps. That's what it's funding. If you think that the program under Operation Enduring Sentinel, entitled Women's Scholarship Endowment, which receives $60 million annually, or the Young Women Lead, which gets about $5 million annually, is going to women who, by the way, if you read the Inspector General's report, is telling you that the Taliban does not allow women to speak in public. Yet somehow you're believing, and American people are supposed to believe, that this money is going for the betterment of the women in Afghanistan. It is not. You are funding terrorism, and it's coming through USAID. And it's not just Afghanistan.
To discuss the veracity and the implications of this statement on Nigeria's security, we're joined this morning by lawyer and public affairs analyst Abdul Mahmoud. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Modi. Thank you for having me. And good morning, Benga.
You're welcome.
Good morning. You're welcome to the show. I think a good way to begin would be to get the first thoughts that you had when you saw that clip. It's since gone viral on social media. The government has, of course, denied it, and there have been mixed reactions on social media. But let's get your first reactions when you saw the video.
When I first saw the video, I wasn't surprised. The news sat with what I know, what is in the literature on conflict resources funding, aid dependency, and if you like as well, conflict trap. Funding of destabilization movements around the world, particularly by aid development agency, may not be through the ways that we usually know. In the course of our presentation this morning, I'll look at more specifically how destabilization movement like Boko Haram are funded through ways like conflict resource funding, where you throw aid agencies into conflict geography or conflict area, and resources are pushed into that conflicted area. Resources become like prizes for terrorist group to win, and they usually win. We also see government to government aid funded, particularly in terms of military assistance. And if you look at the conflicted geographical area in the northeast, more particularly in Maiduguri, and the way Boko Haram terrorists storm military barracks and move away with military hard armament, you can also come to the conclusion, as most scholars have done, like Paul Collier, like Dollar. Who else have I read on literature? So many scholars have concluded that when hard military armament are stolen by terrorists, from military barracks in conflicted areas, one can also argue that this is one of many ways that terrorist groups are funded. The claim made by Scott Perry, appears ludicrous to many.
All right, Mr. Emomotimi, if you may please hold that thought. We'll delve deeper into, you've talked about a lot of the scholarly positions, but some would argue about hard evidence and the role that might play in ensuring that, we can come to a conclusion that this is for sure the position. But let's go on a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll delve more into the conversation. Back to the show, we're still looking at the allegations of USAID funding terrorist organizations here in Nigeria, and we're joined by lawyer and public affairs analyst Abdul Mahmoud. Thank you very much for joining us. Before we went on the break, you were speaking about some of the scholarly articles that you've read and pieces that have been written about these claims and how it wasn't a surprise to you. Some of the arguments that we have seen about it would be, if there really is like hardcore evidence, especially judging by the personality and the controversies surrounding the character or the person of Congressman Scott Perry, is that an argument that should maybe be considered?
I don't think, in the context of what Scott Perry has made, that we should use the hammer to kill the messenger while we leave out the message. Those who insist on hard evidence are not sincere. Let's look at the fundamental basis of foreign aid. Aid, for example, is attached to the foreign policy directive of sovereign national states. And in more cases than not, these aids are driven by national security interests, as they relate to the global interests of the nations that are pushing these aids. So the point I'm making here is this: if you are insisting on hard evidence, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. Aids resource that are driven by Central Intelligence Agency. We've had literatures starting from the one written by Philip Addy in the 1960s, inside the company, CIA diary, even right to the one written by Peter Wright, Spy Catcher, that indicted the intelligence operations of the British MI5 and MI6 overseas. We do know that these overseas development aid are part of the national security interest of sovereign national states. So if we are looking for hard evidence, you will not find them. But if a congressman could sit in the hallowed chambers of his country's national Congress and make such an allegation, it is important for us to look at the allegations and see if they are true. But in the context also of what we know, don't forget that since 2012 in our country, our national government, our federal government, particularly specific personages of power within the government. Let me start with Dr. Jonathan Goodluck. General Ihejirika, even up to CDS, the Minister for Defense, General Christopher Musa, have all consistently made the point that foreign interests are involved in the conflict in the northeast of Nigeria. So it behooves of Nigerians to now ask, who are these foreign interests? What are their interests in the northeast? But if you pose these questions, people will tell you they are part of the conspiracy theorists. I've made a point. In areas where there are conflict, resources also flow into the hands of terrorists, whether in terms of cash or in terms of prices or in terms of cash crops. All of these help to aid, the terror, imposed on conflicted areas by terrorist groups. And consistently too, since 2012, consecutive governors of Borno State have constantly posed the point that aid agencies, non-governmental organizations operating in Borno State have interests that meets the ordinary, in the course of the evolution of the conflict in that state. What Scott Perry has done is openly make the allegation that the U.S. government has consistently formed Boko Haram in Nigeria.
Okay, Abdul Mahmoud, like they say in this past, there's no smoke without a fire, and you've helped us to highlight the difficulty in proving espionage, going back in history and looking at the way intelligence networks operate from Mossad to MI6 and all of that. Now, Nigeria is a sovereign country. It's battling insecurity, and these allegations, these are very weighty allegations. If you could send a message to the Intelligence High Command, the Commander-in-Chief, and the top military brass. What strategies can nations like Nigeria adopt to counteract such covert operations? Because they're not going to, obviously, like you said in your opening statement, that, okay, this money is for Boko Haram and all of this. How do we maintain our territorial integrity and also protect lives and properties of Nigerians?
Let me not sound pessimistic here. I was a delegate to the National Congress in 2014. The then boss at the National Immigration Service had a 3-hour closed-door session with us, where we were told that from the border point in Jigawa in the northeast to somewhere in Banki in Yobe State, across to Borno State, borders that run across 419 kilometers or thereabout or more, 4,119 kilometers or more, are open borders. You can just walk across our country into Chad and into Niger and return back. There is no form of institutional control over those who come in and who come out. So when we see our military combat these terrorists, I pity them, because at the end of the day, we have open borders that allow terrorists, to walk across from the deeper Sahel into our country to impose terror and terrorism the way they have done. If we want to put a handle on this conflict in our country, we have to pose our national border issue as a national security question. This we are willing to do. I was in a national conference, many delegates in national conference, particularly from northern Nigeria, opposed any discussion on Nigeria's open border in the north for very obvious reasons. Some of them will argue that creating a wall, the Trump-like wall, across our border will cut off our kids from their kin in countries like Niger and Chad. That's one. Two, we have to resolve if it is in our national interest to allow the conflict to fester. That resolve is what I do not see. The issue of conflict resource that I raised earlier on has become a major issue in the combat of terror and terrorism in our country. If you look at the number of, if you look at the monies we have voted into the fight of terrorism, you ask yourself, why have we not found results? Simply because these generals who are the national HQ, combat HQ of the Nigerian army, are not interested in ensuring that this conflict ends. So it has become like a corruption conduit pipe for many, in the Nigerian army. We know it. Nobody wants to speak to the truth. I'm speaking to the truth today. If you are a 4-star general and you have earned your PEEP, you should show us the ending of your PEEP by ending the war by ending the war in the Northeast. We've been involved in it for 15 years, fighting a ragtag terror group.
Wow.
And more importantly, our politicians must resolve, to address the issue of, radical Islamic education that is taking place in the north. As we are dealing with Boko Haram, another group has emerged in the northwest of Nigeria, the Takurawan group. So all of these are issues that we have to tie together as national policy issue that the state must address and quickly.
All right, let's look at what the alternative avenues for accountability are. These are very strong claims that have been made, and a number of people seem to agree with them. But what independent bodies, watchdogs, organizations do you think need to step in to investigate this and make the findings, transparent and open to the public?
A body whose voice I should have had when this allegation broke out is the National Human Rights Commission. It's charged with responsibility by law to investigate some of these issues raised by Scott Perry and some of the issues that activists have constantly raised over the fight against terrorism in the Northeast. But unfortunately, I do not think that the National Human Rights Commission is structured at the moment as a governing council. I do not think so. Since the governing council headed by Professor Chidi Odikalo was sacked many years ago, I'm not sure that a governing council has been appointed. They have an EX at the moment, but like any institution of government that has some semblance of independence, it is not independent in true essence of the word. When you are funded by government, you tend to dance to the dictate and tunes of the government. So the National Human Rights Commission has not shown independence. Again, too, the constitutional body charged with conducting investigation into matters of the public like this one is both arms of the National Assembly. If you look at more particularly section 80 to 88 of the 1999 Constitution. But we are dealing with a national legislative body that has big credibility issues on its own. Don't forget that another American, Tigran Gambaryan, also threw some allegations at the House of Representatives. If we have a body whose members could demand 150 million US bribe for the release of some business executives that the government had no business of detaining, I do not see the House of Representatives, talk less of Senate, addressing or investigating the matter. If they do, some people want to see it as an attempt.
I mean, from what you're saying, I think we can infer that you don't. From what you're saying, I think we can infer that you don't expect that there's anybody that will conduct an independent and fair investigation into this. So it will be, again, swept under the carpet.
Let's be honest with ourselves. The wheels have gone off the wagons of this government. It's not interested in addressing any of the big issues that Nigerians are asking them.
What's
all they will do, and they've already done, is to come up with some nonsense press release, exculpating them.
Just before we wrap up, Abdul Mahmoud, as a takeaway, what steps should the Nigerian government take to ensure that international organizations and NGOs that their humanitarian aid genuinely reaches its intended beneficiaries without being diverted to fund terrorism? Because countries like Russia and China, they don't take foreign aid so as to avoid situations like this.
I think two things the government must do. One, at the level of resolution, it must resolve to end the conflict in the Northeast, without foreign aid and interest. The Northeast has become like sugar, like sugar to ants. So if there's a resolution on the part of the nation state, more particularly its armed wing, the Nigerian armed forces, to once and for all address the conflict and deal with it. NGOs, some of very shady nature will not proliferate in the Northeast. And two, the government has to look at how non-state actors are allowed into the theater of conflict. I know that at the moment there's restrictive entrance into Borno State, for example, and that has also helped, in the military, addressing some of the issues arising from the conflict in the Northeast. That has also addressed the consistent allegations that the governors of Borno State have consistently made against NGOs. But because we are also in a democracy, it will be difficult for the government in a single fiat to ban NGOs from operating in conflict areas. But I think these NGOs must be made, to hang on, if you like. I'm looking for a word to use here. To operate within some sort of code that the military and the government set out for them that will guide their AIDS operation in the conflict areas. And the government, this is also responsibility of government. Government must also ensure that those who set up NGOs for the purpose of distributing aid materials, must be checked in a manner that ensures that they have no relationship with terror groups. What I think has happened in the Northeast is individuals who are connected to Boko Haram setting up NGOs and getting funding and aid materials from aid agencies like you said.
All right.
There's a lapse or laxity in the way we allow NGOs to operate, in the way the CAC, Corporate Affairs Commission, lawfully allows the restriction of these agencies like NGOs.
I mean, you've listed very key points on how this can be handled. It's one thing to know what should be done. It's another thing for it to be actually done. But we thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning on Breakfast.
Thank you for your insights, Abdul Mahmoud.
Thank you for having me. God bless you. Have a nice day.
You as well. And now moving on to our next story. Tigran Gambaryan, the Binance's head of financial crime compliance, claims that 3 Nigerian lawmakers demanded $150 million bribe during his detention last year. In a post on X, he named Peter Akpanke and Philip Agbese as part of a January 5, 2024 meeting at the National Assembly, but could not recall the third lawmaker. He also alleged the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu sought billions for political ambitions. Now, here's what you should know.
The NSA's office and the lawmakers have all denied the allegations. Additionally, the federal government, through the Ministry of Information, has called on Nigerians to disregard the accusations, saying they are false and outrageous. In February 2024, the Nigerian government banned cryptocurrency transactions involving the Naira on Binance accusing the platform of terrorism financing and exchange rate manipulation. Two Binance executives, Tigran Gambaryan, a U.S. citizen, and Nadim Ajwala, a British Kenyan, were detained after allegedly meeting with Nigeria's National Security Advisor. Ajwala later escaped from custody. This morning, we're joined by public affairs analyst Duke Oputa, who joins us from London in the United Kingdom to make sense of all of this. A warm welcome to you, Mr. Oputa, and thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central.
Thank you, Benga. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Now, these are very weighty allegations. We just concluded a conversation on USAID's alleged financing of Boko Haram terrorism in Nigeria. To this one, some have termed it a distraction. The Ministry of Information came out, the lawmakers have emphatically denied any wrongdoing in this, and they said Mr. Gambaryan is lying. What do you make of all of these allegations? What's your thought? What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Benga. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is the speed with which the Minister for Information, Mohammed Idris, dismissed the allegations. One wonders whether that is the process through which we investigate crimes, i.e., the government wading in before any investigation or indeed, any inquiries are made regarding the allegation. Now, wanted to notice this. There are two different narratives coming out of this situation. So we've got the narratives from the Nigerian government and, of course, from the individuals accused by Gambaryan. And then we've got the narrative from Gambaryan, which is a direct contrast to what we're hearing from our government. I mean, for instance, the minister insisted that during the first visit that Gambaryan came to Nigeria in January 2024, that they were called in to investigate some bribery allegation. That's during the very first visit in January 24. But Gambaryan, on the other hand, says that there couldn't have been an investigation because he was not, required to provide a statement. So again, the issue is we are now in a position where we have to choose between Gambaryan and the minister who is telling the truth. But the reality of the matter is that it doesn't matter who is telling the truth. The accusations are very serious and need to be investigated one way or the other in a transparent manner. And from our own relationship with our governments, we've come to basically distrust our government. The trust deficit is completely zero. We don't have any reason to believe anything our government tells us because we know that corruption is endemic. And yet, our government has never really ever come out and accepted this corruption. So at the end of the day, we are saying, or I am saying, let us investigate. Let us find out what is happening. And the government should not be wading into this matter. They should have left it to the police. They should have left it to the EFCC. They should have left it to anybody else who has a task of ensuring that law and order and corruption and everything that destroys Nigeria's economy is looked into. But they're doing that, without even bothering to ask the political parties who are involved, the political parties of these three people that have been named, Delta PDP, Abase, APC, and Omusibe, is Labour Party. So why are those political parties not investigating their members? Because that is the way this thing should happen. The first thing that should have happened was the parties calling their members to say, is this true? Give us your version of the story. And then this version of the story can be put out to the press. I mean, there should be a press conference with these people in attendance telling us exactly what has happened. My position is very simple, Benga. If Mr. Tigris says that he was asked for a bribe, yes, I agree. He needs to provide evidence to support that claim. But it is wrong to dismiss that claim out of hand and tell Nigerians that it's one big ploy, by the American government or by Binance or anybody else to destroy the Nigerian economy. The Nigerian economy started being destroyed when this present government decided to remove subsidies for oil. Right. If you remember, Tinubu came into power in Tinubu came into power in May 2023. Now, before May 2023, Binance was already trading in Nigeria. So Binance trading did not start in May 2023. If Binance trading was so disastrous to our economy, then whatever we've seen between Tinubu's term and this point in time should have also been present before that, because the trading has always been there. In fact, Binance's trading has not actually increased beyond 10% year on year since 1920. So ultimately, what we saw between July 23 and June 21, when the big issue is being looked at, i.e. when apparently Binance traded $59 billion in Nigeria, which is almost half, or even possibly more than half, the entire traded value in in sub-Saharan Africa. During that period, when they did this, there was no dramatic increase. There was no dramatic increase because it's a 10% increase, no more than that. So whatever was happening with Binance's trading in the economy was already happening before Tinubu. So the decline in the Naira is not a direct result of that. It's partly, obviously caused by that, but it's not a direct result because we've had that specific result issue through the last 10 years with Binance. They've been trading and the Naira has been relatively stable.
Right.
So it's a distraction.
I mean, one would have expected, ever since the Binance issue happened, part of the expectation was that after Binance, was stopped, in a sense, that the economy will return to what it was, in terms of inflation rates, but we didn't see a lot of that happen. But I want us to go back to a number of the accusations that have been made. One of the persons who has fingers pointed at him is Nuhu Ribadu. But we've seen a number of people jump to his defense. For example, we've seen Ben Bruce jump to his defense. And we've seen a lawyer, Deji Adeyanju, jump to his defense as well. In fact, they've alleged that all of this is just to smear Nuhu Ribadu's reputation, because there's a likelihood of him running for presidency. They say that he has presidential ambitions, and because the politicians are threatened by his proposed presidential ambitions, they're trying to conduct a smear campaign on his reputation. I'd like you to respond to the political angle that has reached to this controversy.
And also Senator Ben Bruce's suggestion that he should undergo a lie detector test, a polygraph test in a neutral country.
Well, again, we're going back to the same position. There's this knee-jerk reaction that our politicians have whenever Nigeria is called out for anything that is, inappropriate. But the reality of the matter is countries should self-correct. There's no two ways about it. It's down to us to ensure that we run our affairs in accordance with our laws, and it's also in accordance with, with moral standards that, we all in Nigeria accept. Nuhu Ribadu, yes, Gambaryan, well, actually, let's be very clear. Gambaryan said Ribadu wanted. He didn't say demanded. He said he wanted billions for his political ambition. So that, in a way, is not really not all that relevant. What does wanted mean? If he had said that Ribadu demanded billions, then that would have been a different matter altogether. But more importantly, if he did demand billions, billions from who? Billions from where? Where do you get billions to give anybody? Even Binance, with all their financial muscle across the world, will not be able to pick out billions to give to anybody just like that. So that is not really that relevant. But what is relevant is that the fact that, again, Ben Bruce came out and, in defense of Ribadu because of his personal knowledge of Ribadu. But let me ask you this. Is there anybody in Nigeria, any politician in Nigeria who has been convicted in the past of fraud, of corruption, of stealing government money? Is there any one of them who does not have good friends who think well of them? So any one of them could have come out, oh, it's my good friend, I know him very well, he couldn't have done that. We have a saying, in Igbo, which says that the monkey mother said he could not vouch for his or her little boy on her back, picking up a mango, because I couldn't, I wasn't there with her, or him on my back. So when, Bruce is coming out and, defending Nuhu, I mean, it's neither here nor there. What is important is that there is no evidence to suggest that Ribadu demanded a bribe.
Yeah,
if you wanted money, anybody can want money. But, my take anyway is, I actually tweeted to Bruce, look, Gambaryan is no longer in Nigeria. He's now snug away somewhere in the United States of America. So if you're looking for someone to take a lie detector test, it should be Ribadu. Ribadu can take a lie detector test and say, I had no conversation with this guy about this thing. If he does that and he comes out clean, then we can say at least, from a technical point of view, yes, we can say, well, obviously, if the lie detector says he didn't lie, then he didn't lie. So it's all a red herring. The important thing to take away from this for me in Nigeria is that we've got to get to the point where we begin to take our country seriously and begin to take seriously any events or actions that is likely to undermine the integrity of our country and destroy our economy. And jumping on a bandwagon to condemn accusations and allegations of fraud is itself counterproductive. What the government should be doing is investigating these matters and ensuring that they do so in a public manner, in a way that is sufficiently transparent, that we can begin to regain confidence in our government.
Now, Mr. Oputa, others who argue, like lawyers say, he who alleges must prove. What evidence supports Mr. Gambaryan's claim that Nigerian lawmakers demanded a $150 million bribe from him, and the allegations he made against Ribadu is hearsay? It's from his perspective. There's no evidence to prove that this happened. So the burden of proof should be on him. Right. Don't you think so?
Well, you see, we're jumping the gun, Wenga. We're jumping the gun. I mean, all that matter that you just raised becomes relevant if you go to court. At this point, we're having a discussion. We're not in court. When we're in court, then obviously the court will demand evidence if you have accusations. But having said that, like I said, Gambaryan has suggested, he's tweeted again in the last couple of days saying, look, I haven't been interviewed regarding this matter. The Nigerian government, through the minister, suggested that myself and my team were uncooperative when they invited us for the second visit to look at a wider range of issues involving currency manipulation. But he said he was kept in a safe house for several months, of 1 month, whatever, and he was never interviewed. So when you say he's uncooperative, but you haven't actually talked to him. Now, wait a minute. Let's be clear. I'm not suggesting that Gambaryan is, telling the truth. But what I'm suggesting that is his narrative. His narrative is, I was in a safe house. I wasn't interviewed. So how could you be saying that we are uncooperative? You kept me in the safe house while you're building leverage against, my employer. Because the key thing really here is, remember, Binance had no sense. Binance have sort of fallen foul of the foul virtually everywhere they've operated. In 2021, as far back as 2021, the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, actually banned Binance from operating in the UK. That was 2021. And at that time, Binance was operating in Nigeria. Did the Nigerian government take a cue and say, hang about, the UK is banning this cryptocurrency facilitating company from operating in our country? Should we be looking into what they're doing in our country to see if they're actually operating within the law? They did not do that. It wasn't until June 2023 that this Security and Exchange Commission in Nigeria decided that Binance needs to be to ban in Nigeria. But following that again, just a few months later, a guilty verdict was passed by a U.S. court, didn't they? Actually, Binance agreed, and that's the key thing. They agreed a plea bargain to pay $4.3 billion. That's a lot of money for violations of money laundering laws in the U.S. And again, not long after that, in 2024, they also fell foul of a number of other authorities as well. So ultimately, they are a criminal organization, as far as I'm concerned. But nevertheless, our government allowed them to continue to operate in Nigeria. Now, in the very first month, of 2023, Binance traded $5-6 billion. Why did that not raise an alarm bell among our people? So the point I'm making is that everybody is benefiting from this. And remember, why is crypto causing this havoc in Nigeria? For the simple reason, economic instability, high inflation. So ultimately, people want to protect their wealth. People want to protect their assets. Traditionally, people would do that by buying dollars. But obviously, with the advent of crypto, it's a lot easier and, more importantly, anonymous to be able to move money around. So ultimately, those who have benefited from what has happened with Binance in Nigeria are the ruling elites. The ordinary Nigerian doesn't have enough money to eat, pay for his petrol. Why would he have money to convert to crypto to put away? He doesn't have it. Right. So it is them that are responsible for it, and it is them that are trying to cover it up.
Man, it really feels like an incomplete picture that we don't have. So many allegations and counter-allegations. Gambaryan talks about how his colleague Nadim did not escape from the mosque like we hear that he did, and that he actually even came back before leaving. There's so many incomplete stories that we're seeing here. But we're hoping that we can get a fuller picture and that justice be done. I think in 30 seconds, the question will be, what will justice in this situation look like? And do you maybe think that this might lead to a diplomatic fallout between both countries?
Well, not really. I mean, it's really not that important. This is a financial matter. It's not a matter of geopolitical importance or anything like that. So the only people that are interested are those who are involved in finance, i.e. the businessmen that are involved. The government of America is not really interested in that, as long as it doesn't affect America from a corruption point of view. So my view really is that, like everything else in Nigeria, is going to blow out in a few months. Nobody's going to hear anything about it. And what is more important is Binance is still negotiating with Nigeria through the back doors to continue to operate in Nigeria. Do we want Binance in Nigeria? Do we want cryptocurrencies in Nigeria? Do we want anything that we cannot control in our economy? This is the key thing, and I think that Tinubu's government really needs to get up, step up, and protect Nigerians from this kind of shenanigans. That is my own view. But there's nothing that we can do as Nigerians. We have to depend on our government. But believe me, those three legislators that have been named, in fact, one of them insisted that he only came to visit, I think it was Abbas that said he came to visit his friend Abanke. We do know Abanke himself was an ex-EFCC operative, wasn't he? So let me ask this question. Why did only 3 or 2 members of the Financial Crimes Committee of the House have this meeting? Why was the full committee not present at this meeting? That raises questions about the clandestine nature of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duke Oputa, for your deep insights on the subject. We do appreciate your contribution. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. It's time to find out what the big stories are making headlines today in the dailies. Joining us is public affairs analyst Dotun Ojon. Dotun, welcome back to Breakfast Central.
Good morning and happy Monday.
How was your weekend?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Your Valentine weekend.
Oh, yeah.
extended weekend.
There seems to be something going on here. We're all wearing different shades.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But we start off with first newspaper. Let's see what the headlines are saying in the Punch newspapers. Telecom tariff, federal government deploys security agencies, NLC insists on protest. The writer says protests will be hijacked by miscreants, says NSCDC spokesman. Subscribers oppose labor move. This is a very interesting one. They're saying, don't worry, don't protest for us. No need. And at the top of the Punch newspapers, OPEC foresees lower Dangote refinery petrol price. I'm sure a lot of Nigerians are saying, amen. Please keep prophesying that sort of thing. Nigerians want lower petrol price. Borno missing children rises as Boko Haram steps up recruitment. Not a good one there. And show fairness in deporting Nigerians, federal government tells the United States. And Adeboye Anyauku Oshibajo, OBX governors attend commendation service. That's for the deceased Afenifere leader, Pa Ayo Adebanjo. And Alaafin Oyo Prince asks court to sack Owade And another sad story, there's a rising incidence of femicide in Nigeria. Dismembered girlfriend died from asthma, says Kwara killer cleric.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, how can you die? What dismembered her body?
So he said, which is very silly, he said that she had come to his house, he's never done anything like that before. Unfortunately, she started having an asthma attack. He ran out to get medication before he came back. She was already dead, and he was afraid of people saying that he killed her. So instead, he thought that a wiser thing to do is to cut her into different parts and,
very
toss
terrible.
her. So he said he didn't use her for ritual. Like, that makes it any better. Anyway, final story there. I think local government crisis, Adeleke Oyetola trade words, labor suspend services. Let's move to the Daily Independent. On the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper, 28.1 trillion naira fiscal deficit, debt servicing burden may dwarf performance. Tinubu urges Joint Maritime Task Force to boost Gulf of Guinea security. PDP dismisses allegations of forgery of primary election guidelines. Tension in Osun as sacked local government chairmen, councillors plan return to office. Osun NLC asked members to stay off their offices. Fundraising, Enugu Security Trust Fund raising 3 billion naira. APC sweeps Katsina local government polls. It's only in this Nigeria, you see. One political party will sweep everything.
It's
like they really handed them broom to sweep.
Yes.
Angry youth set Ondo police station ablaze. WAEC releases November-December 2024 exam results, records 53.64% pass. Nigeria rejects plan to split AU political affairs. Peace, security development. Serap gives CBN 48 hours to withdraw ATM fee hike. Would they listen? It's another issue.
I like Serap's approach. It's better than going on protest that won't yield any results. Yeah.
Well,
and the Gulf of Guinea you mentioned, I'm wondering why President Tinubu has not changed it to Gulf of Nigeria like Trump.
like
Gulf of America. It's true, it's just in our southern border, so why is it not Gulf of Nigeria? Guinea is very far from us.
Very interesting one. Okay, I think maybe we can take one more story. I think maybe we should actually just get straight into it. Let's start with telecom's tariff hike. NLC, of course, has deployed, they're insisting on their protests.
Yeah.
Federal government has deployed security agents to, sort it out, saying that the protests will be hijacked. So let's talk about your thoughts on that.
Okay, good morning again, and it's always good to be here on a Monday morning.
Always good to have you.
And I told you that I don't want to be emotional this morning, so I'm going to rely a bit on data. And,
That's okay.
yeah. So first is that Nigeria response to market response is always very funny if you look at our history, because majorly we do not have a price control mechanism in place. For example, so if you're leading in such a community, you need to be extremely very careful about your decisions, your policies, and your project. What do I mean? If you move a needle in Nigeria, before you know it, the house can crumble. It means that, for example, if you look at what happened 2 years ago, and I was trying to write it down, the price from MBS, the price of petrol was somewhere around 200 naira. When you move that from 200 to about 945 naira that we have today, that's within 2 years. That will tell you that we've got about 225% increase in that. That's for petrol. And now when you look at the consequential effect of it, you can talk about housing, you can talk about transportation and all of that. To fly from 2 years ago to a return ticket from Lagos to Abuja is going to cost you about, averagely, 45,000 naira. That's between 206,000 and 504,000 naira today. That's about 257% increase within 2 years. You can continue to do the analysis. If you get to my 12th market, I don't know whether you've been there, you discover that averagely we are the increase that has happened in the last 2 years is between 200% and 270% in all the cases, including getting accommodation in Lagos. So when you run an economy like that, you know that when you change the price, in fact, we've not talked about foreign exchange. You move from 400 and something to about 1,504 that we have today. That's around 256% increase again within 2 years. So every operation within
across board.
Yes, every organization within such a market will face severe issue, and telecoms is not actually it's not an exception. Yeah. So what we have today is a response of the market situation, that the market situation was also still responding to the policy of government. And because we don't have a framework, and this is not a Tinubu thing, because when you want to limit the scope of conversation, we talk about administration. But when you want to widen it, we talk about government policies over the years. For example, my friend was stranded in Ibadan. He was going from Ibadan to Akure, and he had to reach out to me that he had prepared 9,000 naira to take him from Ibadan to Akure. It used to be 1,500, 1,700. Now when he got to the park, because of the availability of people, the motor park administrators decided to move it from 9,000 naira that he was prepared for to 15,000 naira.
Just like that.
That is the economy we are in. So because there's no mechanism that controls our price directly or indirectly, we are moved by two things. Number one is situation. Number two is greed. So when you have a market situation that is moved by situation and greed, anybody can decide to do anything. And as a result of that, it's going to affect everything. So having said this, you discover that it's not really out of place for any business operator, except if you do not have a business in Nigeria, to say that at this point in time, we cannot continue to do business the way we've been doing it before. And of course, you remember, even to move your staff now from office to their houses, everything is becoming complicated. Ideally, any serious-minded organization should be thinking about increment in the living wage of the staff, as we've had it in the federal government, moving from about 30,000 to 70,000 naira. All of these come together to form the basis of any business decision within any organization. And as somebody who has traveled from the from civil service to the public sector to politics and all of that, I can tell you that there's nothing that can be done at this moment.
So the telcos are within their right.
They are within the right. We'll continue to engage. We'll continue to engage, but I don't want us to leave the reality of what the economy is saying and be pretending as if, oh, these people are just making decisions because
they are immune to it. Especially because they haven't really done any increases in the past.
In the last
how many years? Yeah.
So it's just a response to the market.
So what about NLC that is planning to protest?
Okay, so the understanding is this. I also understand what NLC is trying to say. For example, a man who was earning 30,000 as minimum wage moved to 70,000. That's about 100% increase. The reality of that increase cannot match the realism of the marketplace, of what the marketplace is saying. So in their head, they are thinking that, okay, one of the things we can do, because communication, unfortunately, has moved from where it used to be to becoming a necessity. In Nigeria today, essential service commodity today. So you cannot even tell people to stop talking. Because it's no longer a luxury. So I also understand the thinking of NSC that, okay, if we come out, maybe somehow they can get something out of it. But beyond having to shut down station, you remember that from, I think, February 12th or before then, they actually told Nigerians to boycott the service provider between 11 and 2 p.m. But nobody listened to them.
How will they listen to them when you have Zoom meetings, you have work?
That takes you to the reality of the 21st century business that we need to do as a people, and the need for the government to think deeply in an economy where anybody can wake up, man, and say this cup has moved from 10 naira to 20 naira just without any consequence. And that's why in Nigeria today you still get to some part of where you live across the other bridge that people still pay in dollars to get accommodation.
And all of that is only in Nigeria that rainfall affects the price of transportation.
A dollar affects the price of tomato.
You know the funny thing, even when the dollar is dropping,
nobody is corresponding.
Because now, according to what I'm seeing, reports have it here, you know, haven't confirmed that dollar has dropped from 1,660 to 1,552. There is a slight decrease, right? Or slight increase in the naira.
Yes.
But they will not reflect it
in the petrol. Yeah, in the recent of it, dollar moving from 1,006 to 1,005. In the recent of it, it's not little. It should have a consequential effect on the prices. But
because if the reverse was the case, if it had increased,
the market responds immediately.
The price decrease. This petrol stations are saying, you know, they've not sold their old stock.
Yeah,
but
yes.
they never, when there's an increase, they
never tell you that we are doing this.
Yes.
So these are some of the things that we talk about. When it's very easy, and this is where the issue of responsibility, I don't know whether I can link it to the other story I was saying on the page. This is where the issue of responsibility comes in. It's very easy, and I say it again and again, that you can actually sit from here and think, oh, the person that has offended the gods is actually your president. The person that has offended the gods is actually your governor. But the reality is that the mindset of followership is only advertised in leadership. What do I mean? We pick
It's a reflection.
Yes,
of
we pick the best of us to rule the rest of us, either you like it or not. It's people that went out to vote, or even if you say people didn't vote, that they rewrote the figure. Who did it? It's still the Nigerian people. So we must get to a point of responsibility. And at our little circle, we must effect the change that we want to see. You cannot just sit down somewhere and say because you are NURTW chairman, you move transportation from 12,000 to 15,000 because there are people in your park. And this happens across board.
So we actually need to tell ourselves the home truth. We're very quick to point fingers at politicians, at government, when we are ourselves doing this really terrible things. And you're right that the people are a reflection of their leaders. Until a critical mass of Nigerians change their ways, it would always be garbage in, garbage out.
Absolutely. Let's now take a look at our budgets. We saw that there had been a lot of amendments, and I don't know if I'll call it good news. Some people would react to that.
Highest budget in the history of Nigeria.
It's been passed last week. The front page of Daily Independent says that fiscal 28.1 trillion fiscal deficit and debt servicing burden may dwarf the performance of the budget.
Okay, so as I speak this morning now, there's no record in public place as at this time that has actually exhumed the last year budget and that has communicated to the Nigerian people that this is the extent of the execution. But let me rely on a very important member of the Nigerian government, Senator Udume, who was on TV yesterday, who said it, that the 2024 budget performance is somewhere around 30%.
Yeah, that's a fail rate.
See, the reality is that the reality of the situation is that I am not always excited about the figure in the budget, because year in, year out, you will always see interesting figure. And it's not just year from time immemorial. What makes a budget tick or not is the commitment,
the execution,
to the execution. And you see, you can't be in convenience and want to get commitment to anything. The Nigerian government is similarly used to the fact that, oh, let's just sit, let's put it on paper, and once we put it on paper, we make noise about we increase the figure from last year and all of that. Yeah. And we do not do anything about it. So President Tinubu's ambitious budget is something to be excited about. But the disappointment that will come out of it will be as big as the budget.
So where does the failure in execution come from?
Okay, the failure in execution comes from, number one, the mindset behind the budget. We have never had budget in the last few years. What we've always been having is copy and paste. And that's why you see some ridiculous number in the budget, and they move it from this budget to the other budget. If there's a proper mindset in the planning of a budget, there's no how a cup will come this year and it will also come next year.
What is it called broke?
Because we are doing what they call this thing. Because we are doing party. No, that's the reality. We must continue to check the mindset behind our budget making. And it's beyond the limitation of what the president can do. And that's why I'm one of those people who felt that maybe if a younger person who has the capacity more to look into the books, the more will be better. I'm one of the advocates that because Nigeria complexity makes it exceedingly difficult, if not practically impossible, for the president to know every unit of what is contained in your budget. You rely on your ministers. You rely on your MDAs. You rely on all of the agencies, ministry, and department of government. And at the end of the day, they come with all of this budget. If there's not taken, you can't go through all of them.
Even the Auditor General's report is late.
Everything is late. And that's why I say that any miracle is a product of mindset. Any performance is a product of principle. Once we do not set the principle behind our budget very well, then we continue to have issues. So now what we are talking about, the fear. You even remember that at one point in Nigeria, we were using 25% of our budget to service the needs of National Assembly. That is the mindset behind our budget. It's ridiculous. So we have a fantastic number now. that I am grateful for. But I will be happier if we can stay true to the letter of the budget. And I once said it last time that it is not compulsory that every year that we have a new budget. We can actually back our old budget with a new legislation and say, oh, 2024 budget, because we are 30%.
Government is a continuum.
Yeah, yes. We don't need any budget for 2020. Let's just exhaust this. Let's legislate and add the number we need to have in terms of the current expenditure, because that will not be captured. But in terms of capital expenditure, let us ensure that we finish this. Until we get to that point, we'll continue to have big figures in budget, and we'll continue to create an avenue for people to continue to steal from government. Because the legal way to steal from government is to have legal provision in the budget.
I mean, even those I used to do New Year resolution, if you realize that the last year was
you carry it over. You carry it over. From 2020, I still have item in my New Year principle that I've been repeating since 2020. I saw it. I'm unable to do it. I'm not a failure. I'm just going to push it forward with more energy to get that done.
Thank you very much, Dr.
We have to wrap up. Thank you so much.
30 minutes is short, man.
I know. Thank you for the time with us this morning. We'll go on a break.
It's a pleasure.
And when we come back, more to come. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Sunday, Dari, the Special Advisor, Media and Public Communications to the President, has of course said that he has dubbed a term called Tinubunomics. And he said that Tinubunomics is yielding positive results for Nigeria. There was a scale that was put up on social media of the prices of things before and what the numbers have become now. And this, of course, has garnered a lot of reactions, majority of it being criticism, as people have started to present their own version of what exactly it is. Now, here's what you should know. A recent market survey suggests that prices are actually increasing under the current administration compared to previous ones. According to data from the NBS, the inflation rate has risen significantly since President Tinubu took office, with the price of staples such as rice seen an increase of over 20% in the last year. Economic experts have attributed the rising prices to a combination of factors, including the removal of fuel subsidies, increased taxes, and a weak naira. To analyze the effect of the president's economic policies on the average Nigerian, we have joining us this morning Labour Party chieftain Ife Salako. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Binga. Now, my first question to you is, what was your reaction when you saw that tweet from the Special Advisor to the President, Sunday Dare? I mean, was he comparing Tinubu's government to Tinubu's government? Because I don't understand some of the figures.
I mean, isn't it obvious that you can't compare Tinubu government to any other government apart from Tinubu's government? So they've actually perfected the process of making things get worse than the way they met it, and then they kind of like find a way to get it, retracted to a particular point and begin to praise themselves. It's like children who take like 10 steps, forward, and then they start going back, and it just doesn't lead anywhere, basically. So, but it's they perfected the art of praising themselves over what they have actually done wrong. The whole economic situation, when they took over this country, we all have, a witness to it. We knew where Nigeria was when they came in, and the best you can do, there is a saying in Yoruba that says that Oshabo le gbemi, shemibo shebami.
What does that mean?
Yes, it simply means that Oracle, if you cannot make my life better, at least leave it the way it was.
So look at what the Tinubunomics says. It means 120,000 naira former price, current price is 17,000 naira. Rice 110,000 naira, current price is 90,000 naira. Yeah. Tomatoes 120,000, current price 60,000 naira. Onions 220,000 naira, current price 60. Millet 95,000 naira and 70,000 current price. I think the one that Nigerians can relate to the most, because it's a very key factor in determining the others, are the last two, PMS and dollar. Yeah. 1,220,000 naira before, current price 940 for PMS, and dollar 1,675 before, and current price 1,540. Part of the argument is that, or the argument we've seen supporting this Tinubunomics, even though somebody has done a different version, saying that different version is the real Tinubunomics.
Exactly, with May 29, 2023.
Exactly, I'm hoping that we have that picture. But the argument is that we were living on in a false reality, that what we had then was a government or an economy that was highly subsidized. And so now we are faced with the reality. So that what the comparison might be doing is comparing the actual cost of living post removal of subsidy to what the what the current reality is. So does that argument hold water? Does that argument make sense?
Just to add to what Olive said, it's those decisions had to be taken. The manner in which and the palliative measures that were provided, it's another question. But to say that we've made progress, I mean, what the government should have come, they should have been genuine and said that, look, this was what happened when we took off subsidy, this is it now, like Olive rightly said.
Right, I mean, I don't understand what they keep saying about we living a fake life. I don't understand it. First of all, let me say on this national TV, I am not in support of subsidy removal. For subsidy removal in Nigeria, I am not. I've never been in support of it. And I know that when I say these things, sometimes they come at me and say, oh, your Peter Obi said he's going to remove subsidy. I'm not Peter Obi. I am not in support of subsidy removal. Because the PMS, the way I have said, I've lived in this country for over 40 years. I know very well whatever affects fuel in Nigeria affects the poor people more than any other person. So when you come to me with a narrative that there are some people behind it who are sabotaging, the process and they're stealing and they're taking advantage of it, and you're telling me you're removing the subsidy and not one person, who are these people that are taking advantage of this, the whole process, who are sabotaging the process, who are stealing from subsidy. You have not arrested one person. You have not prosecuted one person, i.e., these persons are your friends and families. And then you think that it is best to remove subsidy and get the poor people to suffer. And you are telling me, okay, let's even say we have removed the subsidy. Who are the ones that are still benefiting from it today? It's still the same set of people. You've not taken anything away from them. And so it's you now coming to say, oh, yeah, you're selling fuel went from... Isn't it shameful? Sorry, isn't it shameful that an APC government can say that fuel is selling for 120 and they brought it to the fuel that you met at the 1,220, fuel that you met at that 2,220 something.
I don't think it was even up to 200 and...
Let's even agree that it was just that 200 and something on it. You added a whole 500%, and then you are happy that you brought it to 940, and you are celebrating that. If again, if APC wants to help Nigerians, they should take us back to the days of 216. I can remember that billboard very well. They printed it, wrote 216 naira for fuel. Is it okay? It is not okay at the time. 940 is then madness.
But let's look at some of the positives. In the last 1 year, we've gone from a net importer of petrol to we're being self-sustainable, we're being sustainable, self-reliant now. The Dangote refinery is even exporting finished products to different countries. Is that not worthy of celebration? And fuel queues seem to have disappeared.
It's in all fairness, I'll tell you that we had lesser fuel queues even under Buhari's government, save for towards the end of the term, and then things are getting a bit messy. So fuel queues shouldn't be something that should be celebrated in this age and time. Man, this is 2025.
We know the struggle.
I mean, it shouldn't be something we will be talking about and saying that it's a positive, that we're having in Nigeria. I mean, the largest oil producer in the world, in Africa, in the world, as it were. I mean, so you cannot say...
Yeah, but because we've been there, we've experienced this pain of long queues.
Then shouldn't we have gone past that? Isn't that what APC promised us in 2015?
And we seem to have gone past it now.
Oh, I mean, to some extent.
To be honest, last year was chaotic. It felt like we were having back-to-back fuel scarcity.
Yeah. So coming to the fact that, we now have some refinery, we have the Dangote refinery. Great. I have said it. I know very well. It is the private sector that drives the economy.
Is it too early for Tinubunomics for them to start celebrating? Because if you look at market dynamics,
like
others have said it will still come down. Like the price will come down.
Economics. You see, the problem has not been solved. The problem has not been dealt with. It is corruption, pilferation of government funds. That is where the problem is, and excessive spending of government. These are the problems that we are facing. So when you say that you have a budget of, you know, I think the brother for 54.99 trillion, and I can look at that money. One, the money is not available. You know, a huge percentage of it is going to come through loans and all. We're using 25%, no, 26% of that budget to sponsor loan, to pay back loans. 26% of our budget, right? And let's get it clear. I mean,
see the real Tinubunomics that is being shown on the screen. So as of 2023, a bag of rice, 35,000 naira. Was it 35 really? I feel like bag of rice was like 50,000 naira, but I mean, I don't know. And that 2024, it came up to 110,000 naira. Now it's back.
Just look at PMS and dollar.
So okay, yes, let's look at PMS. PMS 165. I don't know if this is the actual value, but 2024 1,220 and 940. And that's one thing that the current administration has been accused of. They've accused them of inflating prices and then reducing it to the actual.
Not even the
actual intent that they had in mind all along. Then people now start saying, at least, it's just like someone setting the house on fire and then bringing the fire extinguisher and putting out the fire. You're saying, oh, wow, you did a great job putting out the fire. Those are some of the things that we hear Nigerians accusing them of. But, I mean, is there hope? Do you have hope? Labour Party is having its own drama, but do you have hope? If we have time, we'll look at that. 2 more years. 2 more years. Some will say 2 years. Some will say 6 years.
Are there still things they can do to salvage?
Is it 2 more years for the APC, or is it 6 years? And do you see anything that can be done to ensure that the Tinubunomics is that they call it is palatable to the average Nigerian?
I mean, there's no way it can be palatable to Nigeria. You cannot destroy the economy as much as they destroyed it, and think that it can be rebuilt in 2 years. Because these are figures. You can't force it. There was a time they're trying to force the inflation down and say, no, you cannot hide these things. They are there. We are presently at 34.8 inflation, which is still, because if you look at it realistically, just as we are saying,
it's more than that.
It's way more than that. I had a friend who bought a car, Highlander, in the 2020. Right, we bought the car, a foreign used car, for 3 million naira.
You cannot try that now. If you say 3 million, please.
Here's where I'm coming. That car, he has used it for 5 years now, right? And the Nigerian market, the Nigerian price of that car, right? It's about 6 million naira.
Imagine. Wow. You know what? You hear these numbers and they just make you so exhausted. We're going to have you join us again and talk about the potential of the Labour Party, at the next elections. And you have to give us your word, that you can give us that word.
Sure. Sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us, Professor Lako, on this conversation. We will be bringing you Which Way Nigeria. We'll be looking at the budget this time. Stay with us.
Nigeria's 2025 budget has been signed into law. A whopping 54.99 trillion naira, a record-breaking figure. But beyond the numbers, the real question is, how realistic is this budget? How will it be implemented? And more importantly, how much of it will actually improve the lives of Nigerians? For context, let's look at a key failure in our budgeting process. The recently released audit report of the Legislative Assembly covers the last 4 years. In what serious country do citizens receive financial accountability reports 4 years late? By the time Nigerians get the answers, the money is already gone, spent, mismanaged, or unaccounted for. The fundamental flaw in Nigeria's budget isn't just the figures, it's the process itself. Our budgeting framework is not linked to actual national priorities. A budget should be backed by well-researched policies and data-driven projections. But in Nigeria, it's little more than a copy and paste exercise. Every year, it's the same cycle: spend more than last year, borrow more than last year, rinse and repeat. Take, for example, debt servicing. Nigeria is expected to spend close to 14 trillion naira servicing debt in 2025. That's 25% of the total budget. This means that before a single naira is spent in development, we are already drowning in debt repayment. How did we get there? A major reason for this is that the system is broken. The National Assembly has abandoned its role as a check on the executive. Remember when President Tinubu presented the 2025 budget and the National Assembly sang the president's campaign anthem?
Man of focus, the man who loves the National Assembly, the one that will support you to support your constituents, will now present the 2025 budget. On your mandate, we shall stand. On your mandate, we shall stand. On your mandate, on your mandate.
Well, that tells you a lot. Instead of scrutinizing the budget, they rubber stamp it without asking tough questions. No accountability, no performance matrix, no consequences for failure. If there was any doubt about the seriousness they gave the budget, here's a reality check. Nigeria just passed its biggest budget in history, yet only 45% of the Senate bothered to show up at plenary when it was passed. If they don't consider it a priority, why would Nigerians believe it will make a difference? A budget of this scale deserves rigorous scrutiny, not empty seats. The budget should be an economic tool for growth and not just an annual ritual of increasing expenditure. How much of it is backed by research? How much is linked to productivity, job creation, and real economic transformation? Without urgent reforms, we'll continue to see the same cycle of abandoned projects, deficit financing, and economic hardship. 54.99 trillion naira budget means nothing if Nigerians remain in poverty, infrastructure decays, and the economy falters without reform. We're not planning for growth, we're just planning for failure. Good morning, Nigerians.
And what? There's nothing more left to be said. We hope that you can think on that. I'll be back again tomorrow to dissect that even further. Thank you very much for joining us, Nigerians. Other shows continue here on News Central TV. I am Olive Emodi.